Okay, so in this video, I'm going to show you how to, with a walking cycle of 16 frames, okay, how to create a sidewalk that is in perspective and also loops. So right now we have a looping 16 frame animation, right? So that when I click on it, we have a walking cycle of the character walking through each one of those 16 frames, okay? So pause that. So what you're going to need to do is make sure you have another layer created. Okay, so if you have just your construction layer and your layer of your walking cycle character colored in, right, I can click on the construction layer and I can click on the plus sign down at the bottom to add another layer. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is on that layer, you're going to create essentially where the sidewalk is. Okay, so I'm going to use black as my line, and I'm going to draw a line that's behind him. Now remember, we're going to be drawing this in perspective. I'm drawing a line sort of behind him, or which would be behind him, so which is like essentially cutting through his legs, and then I'm going to draw a line in front of him. Okay, so this idea of overlapping comes into play. Okay, we learned this last year in Art Studio. To create depth or space, right, we can create a sense of overlapping. And to create perspective, we can use sort of what we call one-point perspective. So right now, this is going to be sort of the edge of the curve right here. So I've drawn 3 lines, okay? And I'm now going to start to draw in the perspective lines. But before I do that, in terms of the animation, I want to make sure that I'm giving myself a guide to work on. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to click on that construction drawing again, and I'm going to add another layer. Now this time I'm going to draw in light blue because I want to create similar to our construction drawing, right? That we have some guidelines that we're using, okay, but we don't want them black. Okay, so I'm on my other layer now. So in order to create perspective, we're going to start right here in the middle. And if I was to count over the amount of squares, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So boom, I'm going to draw a line down the middle. Now, we're going to use the graph paper of this to really get a nice even distribution. And you'll see why this makes more sense, because I know that there's actually 24 boxes across here. And I'm going to have my grid. I'm going to actually hide the character right now to make this easier. So I'm going to click on the character, hide that layer. I'm going to count over 1, 2, I'm going to count over 1, 2, 3, 4 essentially boxes, okay? And I'm going to put a dot there, and I'm going to count over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 boxes this way and put a dot there, okay? And then I'm going to draw a line that connects them, okay? So then, again, over on the top side, I'm going to come over 4 boxes, okay? And then here, I'm going to come over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Boom. Okay, so you're starting to kind of create this illusion of perspective this way. Now, you could eyeball it, but I want you to be clear that sometimes using the grid is going to be very helpful as we're creating the math of the looping animation, okay? So I'm making sure that I've counted over 4 squares, and I'm really kind of making that sense of perspective. Okay, so now I have some main lines. Now I'm going to sort of divide this in half. Okay, so essentially now if I put a point at the midway point of every single one of these sidewalk pieces, okay, and then I put a midway point, right, on the other side, right, and then I connect those lines, right, I'm starting to, you can imagine that it would be over here, so it's kind of coming to the side, angling out. Okay, starting to create guides. I'm going to do it one more time. I want to create in between from the middle. Okay, so this is sort of one box over and in the middle. Okay, so here's the middle here, one box over. Okay, middle. Okay, middle, middle, etc. So I'm kind of essentially creating a nice template for me to use when I'm actually going to start filling in this information. Now I could go even one more, okay, and actually because the looping that we're going to do is ultimately going to be um, a little slower. I'm going to do one more in between that too. So we're going to put the halfway mark. Boom, 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 boom. So essentially I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines in between each one. Okay. So what I've done is I've kind of created a template, and you'll see why this is important later, because it kind of keeps my perspective working well as I'm creating the movement of the sidewalk. Okay, so that's step one. Create a template, just like I showed you there. All right, so now I'm going to click on the sidewalk layer that I drew, and I'm actually going to create one more layer. And you'll see why this is important later. So I'm going to add another layer on top of that, and I'm going to get back to my black pen, and now I'm going to click, and I'm going to draw that where I was originally, right? I'm going to draw that first line, and I'm going to count 4 squares over, and I'm going to follow that guideline, boom, and then I'm going to count 4 squares over, and I'm going to follow that guideline, okay, and then I'm going to go the other way, 1, 2, 3, 4 squares over, follow the guideline, 1, 2, 3, 4 squares over, follow that guideline, okay. Now 4 squares will get to the end. So now I'm going to click on frame 2, okay. And essentially, I want to copy and paste the guide to each one of these frames. Or an easier way to do it is actually to paste that guide to my paper in the background. Okay, so you can do different ways. I like to start out by pasting it to the paper in the background. So I'm going to click on my guide layer, and I'm actually going to copy it. Okay, and then I'm going to click on the paper, and I'm going to paste it. Okay, so now essentially what that does is it makes it so that that guide layer will play through the whole thing. And now I can actually delete my guide layer. Okay, so you could have done that in the paper. Some people like to leave their paper empty just in case of the layering. But I think for this exercise, it's just as easy to do it in the paper. So I have a guide to work off of. I'm going to come back up to where I'm starting to draw in each one of those lines of the sidewalk. So again, as you see, there's 2 different layers here, one for the sidewalk itself, one for the lines in the sidewalk. Okay, so now I'm going to click on number 2, frame 2, and I'm going to essentially draw one line over, okay? And so you can see the ghost, the onion skin from the previous line, so now I'm going to draw one line over. And then again, just keep following that idea that you're moving towards the left, one line over, okay? So you can, boom, boom. That's why it's important to use a nice light. Okay, so here the one line over would have been right there, just coming out. Okay, now frame 3, next one, next line over, right? So boom. Look at the previous line that you drew, and you're just following the guide that you already created, that light blue line. It will help you keep your perspective lines nice and even and consistent. Now, essentially, what's going to happen, once we get to frame 8, we're done. We basically now can copy and paste for as many different frames as we want that to repeat, because we've created, by the time the 8th frame comes around, the next frame is going to be back to the beginning again. Oops, I missed one line there. Boom. Okay, and you'll see what I'm talking about in a minute. So, boom, next line over, next line over, next line over. Okay, good. Okay, frame 6, next line over, next line over. Okay. Alright, and 7, line over, and frame 8, next line over, and there we go. So that's kind of all. You only need to do 8 because now we get to copy and paste for the rest of it. Okay. So from our 16 frames here, okay, just like we were copying and pasting the figure, I'm going to come back to frame 1 and I'm clicking the sidewalk layer, and I'm going to copy and paste that information in by just copying, clicking, paste, copy, paste, right? And just keep clicking on the next one, copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste, okay? And then I'm just going to keep going all the way through 16 frames, copy, paste, copy, paste, okay. And done with that. So now I'm going to come back frame 1, I'm going to copy it, and click on frame 9, paste. Frame 2, click it, copy it, click on frame 10. Oh, you know what I forgot to do? I forgot to switch layer. So click on frame 1, make sure I'm in the correct layer, copy, click on frame 9, paste. Right, and then frame 2 I'm clicking on, make sure I'm in the right layer, copy, paste. Frame 3, copy, come to frame 11, paste. Frame 4, copy, come to frame 12, paste. Frame 5, copy, to frame 13, paste. Alright, so you're getting the sequence here, right? 6, copy, right, 14, paste. Now, why are we copying and pasting? Well, it saves us from doing a lot of extra drawing, and it makes things very consistent. Okay, and so you're going to see as we're developing this project, right? So now I'm on the last one, 8, copy, that sometimes it's just much easier to copy and paste than try to redraw everything. Okay, so now I've gotten that sort of sidewalk lines moving. I'm going to hide my guide on the background, and I'm just going to play it so you can see, right, that it starts to move. I'm going to unhide my character, okay, so you can actually see it in action, right, that he's going to start stepping, and it's almost like he's, stepping as he's walking, right. It gives the illusion that he's walking through. And because we created those guides, it's very consistent, okay? So this is really moving, and we've kind of created a loop every 8 frames through 16 frames, okay, of this sidewalk moving, okay? So that's the end of this video right here. We're going to continue to develop, and I'm going to show you how to create a moving wall behind the character and to start thinking about how we might color this in. Okay.